And honest to God, I thought to myself when I was putting together our topics before Wednesday, I thought this is going to be a very quiet week. It's going to be kind of boring, honestly. How can we pull a show together? And then the Vince bomb dropped Wednesday afternoon. And we have a shitstorm on our hands at Titan Towers as Vince McMahon is under investigation by his own WWE board of directors, first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Apparently, he paid off his former employee and mistress $3 million in a hush money payment that would be paid in installments over the next 3 or so years. John Laurinaitis is a snap dab in the middle of this controversy, along with several controversies around several improprieties regarding sexual relationships at Titan Towers over the years. And this is leading to NDAs being unveiled, saying this has happened before. And let's be honest with ourselves, we're not shocked by this news. Hell is hot, water is wet. Vince has been known to step out in his marriage on more than one occasion. This isn't shocking, but the fact that you're possibly using company funds to pay off these relationships is definitely a choice and not a good one. And everyone thought, what would be the result of this investigation? What would be the outcome? Is this the one thing, after so many attempts to oust Vince, would this be the one that would finally be the death knell? And come to find out, by Friday morning, we got some answers, as he has stepped down voluntarily as CEO and chairman of the board. And in his place is someone that recently took a leave of absence, his own daughter, Stephanie McMahon. She is now the interim CEO and chairwoman of the board of WWE. And she got read for filth in a Business Journal article a couple of weeks ago about how she was a bad chief branding officer. She didn't know what she was doing. And now she's literally in the head chair of the company from a corporate standpoint. And before the champagne bottles are popped about Vince being gone, it should be noted that Vince is still in charge of creative. He still has the book day to day. He's still producing Raw and SmackDown. He's still dictating storylines. So it ain't all gone. It's not all Vince completely disappearing from WWE. So he has hands all over the product. So with the investigation continuing, with the independent law firm going into the investigation further, Scott, do you foresee Vince surviving this latest controversy that has really dominated the headlines as of late? And he appeared on Friday Night SmackDown a couple of days ago, and he got a hero's welcome in Minneapolis, Minnesota. These people loved him. They gave him a standing ovation. They sung his song. They clapped. They cheered. He says, "We're in this, then, now, forever together." I don't know who is we, because it ain't me, but do you? He got the Vanity Pop, popped a rating for SmackDown as well. And I think this was tacky, but at the same time, this was restraint by Vince standards, because if it was 20 years ago, he might have said something else. He might have really went there and tried to stoke the flame, so to speak. So for him to be just out there to get the cheap pop, good for him in some ways. But ultimately, this investigation will lead to more truths that have been hidden from WWE for a very long time, which could lead to his ouster. But when is enough when it comes to Vince and all these stories unfolding as of late?
I mean, I think the reaction that he got tells the story right there. I'm not surprised by it. I'm a guy who is fully, I support the WWE 100%. I'm gonna watch all their programming, or as much as I can. That doesn't mean I support Vince McMahon and the decisions that he makes. But am I surprised by it? Nah. This is what he does. Like, whether we like it or whether we want to admit it, it is what it is. Like, this is what Vince McMahon does. Vince McMahon gets caught up in an allegation, regardless of what it is, and he finds a way out. I mean, he finds a way out. Someone takes the fall for him. Something is going to happen. It's going to get swept under the rug. Now, this is a new day and age. This is an age where people won't forget. They won't let you forget. And then social media is a powerful thing because it's something you can always go look back on. So, maybe is this the end of Vince McMahon? No. Vince McMahon is going to be with WWE in some form or fashion until he dies. And I don't mean that as any type of negative connotation or any ill will. That's just genuinely what I think, because he lives and breathes this. Like, this is what he does. And he's going to do everything in his power to stay connected and invested in WWE, even if that means he has to step down as the face. Even if that means he has to just be behind the scenes and in the shadows. This is what Vince McMahon does. I would be shocked. I would be shocked if this is the end of Vince McMahon, with WWE. I would be shocked. But I'm not surprised by it. And no, I think Vince McMahon will still come out of this attached and connected to the WWE as far as in charge. He's still running, like you said, he's still running creative. He's still in charge. Everything still runs through him. I think everything will stay the same when all this is said and done.
I feel slightly differently about it because, as you mentioned, it's a new day and age, and I don't think this story will be quickly forgotten if there's more to it, if more people publicly step out and say this has been going on for a very long time, because it feels like this has been a culture shift in WWE and that you're not going to take this anymore. There's been a lot of leaks from Titan Towers as of late, reading Stephanie, and then this leakage of the email about the payment of $3 million. Somebody's got axe to grind. It might be Stephanie in some ways. I feel like this is a real life game of succession. And when you see scandals like this coming out and you see that McMahon might not be in charge of this company long term, and you hear the rumblings of a sale potentially taking place somewhere down the road that could be expedited in the next year or so, if someone wants to say, hey, I don't want to pay for these rights fees anymore, let's buy the entire company, that might be the strategy moving forward. But I do think that for the first time, this story won't be swept under the rug, because I think there are several people in that company that's got an axe to grind, and they're not afraid to leak stuff to the press to get their point across anymore.
Now, I will say this, if I will agree with you there. If this becomes a snowball avalanche type thing where one after another, and we start, forming a line here of people, then I think, okay, I might have to, then I'll be like, okay, there's legs to this. This is it. This is the end of Vince McMahon with WWE. If it just stays like this with, this one source and then just a few rumors thrown out there, I think nothing comes of it. But if we get that snowball effect that you speak of, I'm 100% with you. That will take him out. But it's going to take a snowball. Like, it's going to take an avalanche to take a titan like Vince McMahon out. Like, you're going to need a few people to speak out. You're going to need more than what they have right now.
Agreed. And I think that might be necessary, because I'm kind of tired of wrestling being immune to all of the bad things happening in the world. Like, hey, sexual harassment and leveraging your power for sex. Hey, we can do that in wrestling. At some point, you do want to clean up that culture. You want to get into the 21st century. You don't want to be a carny promotion anymore. You want to be respected as a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and you don't want this shit attached to it anymore. And I do sense that somebody is going to say something beyond what we know thus far that's worse than what we already know. And I feel that day is coming. I just feel like for the first time in a really long time, people are not afraid to leak stuff, say stuff, and let it be known. And it's probably coming from his own family and inner circle at this point, which is really interesting. So let's shoot it back this way. If there was a way to oust Vince from power, who would you pick to run the day-to-day operations of WWE, not only from a corporate standpoint, but who would you give the book to in terms of being the lead booker?
Oh boy, man, that's Triple H is the sexy answer, and I think he's the popular choice, and it depends on whether he wants to do that. Like, Triple H is in a completely different spot right now, like in his life and what he wants to do. So, but as far as someone who I think would be like, all right, and it would be outside the box thinking, and I think they would have learned from their mistakes, just from what I've heard from them on their podcast a little bit. I think Jeff Jarrett I wouldn't be opposed to Jeff Jarrett getting a shot running WWE. I know people are gonna be like, oh, are you crazy? Look at what he did with TNA. You have to put a good circle around him, but some of the ideas, the concepts were good. The execution and how they went about it and how Jeff Jarrett just constantly had the title, that's where the problem came in. But some of the concepts that he came up with, man, I don't think Jeff Jarrett would be a bad idea. And he would be completely different from what we have, and it would just feel like a breath of fresh air. And obviously you would have to bring him in because he, some of it, like I said, some of his stuff was a little wild, but I think he brings a lot of good concepts. And then if it's not him, I think you got to go with Paul Heyman, and you have to give Paul Heyman everything though. You got to give him everything, the book, the checkbook. And you just got to let him just do what he wants. With Jeff Jarrett, I think you can just give him the book. And then Nick Khan would take care of everything else. But if you do go with Paul Heyman, you got to give him everything.
Agreed. I have a couple ideas in mind that might be a little outside the box as well. If I had to give the book to somebody, it would be if he's allowed to do whatever he needs to do without a Bruce Pritchard or a Kevin Dunn around, I would say give the book to Shawn Michaels, because he's the kind of guy that's not going to be stuck on size, because he represents, hey, average size dudes. I wasn't tall, I wasn't the biggest, but I knew what I needed to do to get over, and he's not going to be stuck on the cosmetics of it all. So I think he'll think that way and just focus on the talent and the charisma of the talent to get them over regardless of how they look. If I'm going in the talent relations route, I would probably give, if he would like to do it, if he likes to pursue this post-wrestling, give Cody Rhodes that responsibility as head of talent relations.
I'm all for Cody Luther King, but I don't know about them reparations with the stories, though. Cody, he go a little overboard with some of his stories. See, he would be another guy like Jeff Jarrett. You just got to have the right people around him. That's probably a good idea, because he's a younger guy too, and you just got to have the right people around him. I think that's the key for whoever gets the book after Vince. It's all about the right people. Because even with Vince, he has these yes men, so we don't know what Vince really thinks, because he just knows whatever I say they're going to agree with. So you have to have the right people around you, regardless of how good of a booker you individually are or the ideas that you have are.
Yes, I would say that there are some good people backstage. Adam Pearce is one of those people. Hurricane's one of those people. TJ Wilson. If you got that brain trust around you, this company would be just fine. If you just get rid of the yes men, Bruce Pritchard, Michael Hayes, John Laurinaitis, Kevin Dunn. If you get rid of the cesspool of people that suck and you let this next gen crew that sincerely have a love for this break through and help really forward momentum for WWE to be the leading force. Yeah, you're number one. You have the most money. Obviously, you got the television real estate, but it feels very outdated and antiquated in terms of how you run your business day to day. There are so many fresh ideas and perspectives out there. Just go there and take a risk and see where it goes. I think the fans would appreciate that, but we'll see. It's a lot of brainstorming here. I just think that for the first time in a really long time, these ideas are not exactly outside the box. It's kind of probable, but it will be with the result of this investigation. We'll see how it goes. But to even think this after years of wondering when Vince would step down, and to think that this scandal could be it is crazy. But at the same time, it's not surprising, because we know that Vince has a pattern of behavior like this. But now we might get to see how extensive it is. And I'm afraid of the stories that might come out regarding all of the harassment allegations that has been running rampant over the years.
This final chapter of this, because this is the beginning of the final chapter. How long the chapter is, that depends, but this is the beginning of the final chapter, and this is going to be a very interesting chapter in the Vince McMahon story.
Yes, he turned 77 in a couple of months. There's books being written about him, documentaries by Netflix being produced, and I can only imagine the editing that's taking place right now to add the next chapter to this ever-evolving story that will continue to unfold in the weeks and months to come.